Apple makes so much money that any other company in comparison looks insignificant. In just one quarter, Apple made more money than Amazon has since its inception. The company has become a money-making machine with over $200 billion in its bank accounts. In fact, it makes more money than Microsoft, Facebook, and Alphabet combined. That's why investors love Apple. Unlike other tech giants that promise huge profits in the future, Apple is making huge profits now. However, the person who founded Apple and led it to greatness never became the world's richest man, unlike some others. In fact, even if he would be alive today, he still wouldn't be even in the top 10 richest people, even though he has built the world's most valuable company from scratch. So let's try to find out why Steve Jobs' wealth had nothing to do with Apple, even though that he spent his entire life building it. You see, Steve had a complicated relationship with Apple. Just after 2 years of starting Apple, Jobs' net worth was already over $1 million. In fact, Apple II was so successful that by the time Steve was 25, his net worth exceeded $250 million. That made him one of the youngest people ever on Forbes' list of the richest people in the United States. What's more, he was part of a very tiny group of people under 30 to make the list with no inherited money. Even when the company completed its initial round of fundraising, Jobs still held 26% of the company, which would worth today over $214 billion. Nonetheless, along the way, Jobs kept selling his shares, and after 5 years of the company going public, Jobs' stake of the company has dropped to only 11%. However, this incredible success didn't last long. After recruiting John Sculley, the head of Pepsi-Cola, to be its new CEO, things went bad for Jobs. These two men had absolutely different visions for the company, and in the spring of 1985, the board sided with John Sculley and removed Jobs from his position. He left the company and sold all of his shares for $130 million. He did retain a single share so that he could receive the company's annual report. It's at that time when Jobs made most of his fortune. Steve went to find another computer company that he named Next. It mostly focused on building computers for companies, scientists, and academics, and it had achieved a relatively good success, especially with software. Simultaneously, Steve founded Pixar, the animation company that created some of the most popular animated films in the world, such as Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Cars, A Bug's Life, and many more that were extremely successful. By 2004, as Pixar's contract with Disney was running out, Jobs announced that Pixar would seek a new partner to distribute its films. However, Pixar was too important for Disney, so they agreed to purchase Pixar in all-stock transaction worth $7.4 billion. The deal netted Jobs $4.3 billion in Disney stock and made him the company's biggest single shareholder. In fact, he made more money from this deal than he ever made from Apple. Speaking of Apple, after the resignation of Steve, the company crippled and went through a long-lasting crisis. Apple brought multiple CEOs on the board. However, no one could get back Apple to its knees, and the company was left with no other choice but to get Steve back on the board. But it wasn't easy since they forced him out of the company in the first place. So Apple agreed to purchase Next for almost $500 million in 1996 and appoint Jobs first as interim CEO and then as the CEO. On the top of that, Apple granted Steve 1.5 million shares. However, he quickly sold them upon getting his position. Under Jobs' leadership, the company introduced multiple revolutionary products and the company's stock price increased from under $1 to almost $60 per share. And before he passed away, his net worth was around $10 billion, which mostly consisted of Disney's share. It's only after he died the company's valuation soared to over $1 trillion. If Jobs kept his 26% stake, it would worth today a whopping amount of $209 billion. Even his 11% stake that he held after the company went public would worth today over $88 billion. That would make him the third richest person in the world. But you can't really blame him for selling his shares since he couldn't have expected to be back at Apple after he was forced out. And that's why the man who built the world's most valuable company never became the world's richest man.